But we're not done with basketball yet. Ross Martin, Big Hitters Only podcast, 24/7 Sports, joining us on the Adam Gold Show. Sir, how are your brackets? I'm contractually obligated to ask that. Nobody cares how mine or yours are, but how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, my philosophy is always to go heavy chalk, and this year was probably the best year to go chalk.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Most of the top seeds advancing, so I just think you take too many risks with trying to take upsets, so just go chalk, and you usually end up okay.
Yeah, you do. If the plan is to win your office pool, you're probably better off staying with chalk. Chalk is generally around in the second week. Let me ask you about, because it was funny, because I was otherwise occupied with so many other things. Like Tuesday, I had a hockey game. I didn't even realize until I saw it on social media halfway through yesterday's show that Elliot Cadeau had put his name in the transfer portal with intent to transfer. Let me just ask you a big picture question. What do you think that says about the state of UNC's basketball program?
Loaded question there.
No, I don't mean it to be loaded. My answer, I'll tell you what my answer was. My answer was that they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a lot of people were not happy with the offense for UNC this past season, and you can't stay the same. You've got to grow and get better. So obviously, the most important person for the offense is the point guard. Now, who knows if he was pushed out or if they just? I mean, I think it's going to end up better for both parties, UNC and Cadeau, to go separate ways. I think UNC needs to get bigger across the board. They ran two guards that I've stood next to both those guys. I don't think they're both under 6 feet. Maybe right at 6 feet, 5'11". You can't have both your guards that tall. You can have maybe one, but you can't have two. And they need to get bigger across the board. You need to get a 7-foot center, 6'11" center, and have a shooter at the 4 position. So you're going to see a whole revamp of UNC's roster. And a lot of the people are upset on the message boards about parting ways with Cadeau, but I think UNC can find a point guard that can shoot and that's a little bit bigger, and the offense may run a little better that way. But Cadeau's certainly talented. He's going to get a lot of money going someplace else, so I think he'll be fine as well.
Ross Martin is joining us, Big Hitters Only podcast, because I know how the question was going to be taken. Maybe it was better for me to tell you what my quick opinion was. I also don't think that this year's failings, whatever they were, because they had a good offensive team, I don't really think it was Cadeau's fault. I mean, to me, if you've got 4 really good players, a high-level upper part of the ACC starters around Cadeau, I think Elliot Cadeau is a fine point guard for you. He's a great driver. He's not a great defensive player. I've got issues with the fact that sometimes, Cadeau will kind of short circuit on the court, emotionally short circuit, which is not good from your point guard. But as an actual, like a talented player, I think he has a lot to offer. It just was not going to benefit this team enough because they didn't have enough of those players.
Yeah, this past season, the rosters didn't fit. I think he thrives with a lob threat and pick and roll big man. I mean, Baycott was kind of that last year. Someone who can really control the inside and create a lot of gravity. They really didn't have that. You kind of saw it a little bit at the end with Vin Allen Lubin and how successful that was. Like, Vin Allen Lubin and Cadeau had a really good chemistry late, but he never got to play with a true lob threat. And so that's an indictment of the staff not acquiring that in the transfer portal. And then this past year, the shooting wasn't up to snuff. Kay Tyson didn't pan out. But last year when they had some shooters, things worked. They were number 1 seed. They had Harrison Ingram and the names are escaping me. But
Cormac Ryan.
Incredible season.
Yeah, Cormac
Ryan, Harrison Ingram, and R.J. Davis were some 3-point threats. So you had those 3 players to surround him, and the offense looked a lot better. This year, the roster didn't fit, and so the blame kind of falls on a lot of different people, and some of that fell on Cadeau's hands. But yeah, he's a great college player.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a top 10 point guard next year somewhere.
Yeah,
wherever that is, and he'll make probably $1 million in NIL.
Good for him. I'm thinking about going back to school now, Ross. No, I'm
What
not.
position are you?
I'm a power point guard.
Yeah. Left bench.
Yeah. Ross Martin is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. So North Carolina brings in a GM. What are your thoughts on is the program now structured to take the next step, the steps they need to take? Is this the right GM? I mean, personally, I feel like they would be better suited for somebody with connections in recruiting and grassroots basketball, as opposed to somebody who signed a lot of NBA player contracts. But you might know better than I. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we don't have anything to go on about. There's no record to go on. I think after this year, we'll be able to kind of figure out if he's good or not. But I think there's two ways to go. You kind of go the agent route, which would be Jim Tanner, veteran NBA agent, or you go kind of grassroots basketball, which a lot of programs have done well. I think the Jim Tanner role is more of a executive director role as well, so he's going to have people underneath him that are doing a lot of the scouting and a lot of the grassroots stuff. But, I mean, he is respected. I think it was a great hire, but we'll see. I mean, he's got to produce. I think you're going to see the way UNC operates in transfer portal be a little bit different. Like, they can't wait around like they did last year. I think you're going to see some dominance fall quickly, but I mean, part of my job at CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports is all transfer portal, so we're monitoring it closely. And a lot of the best players aren't in yet, so there's still 16 teams, and there's still it's a 30-day process. So there's some dominoes that are falling, but it's going to take a couple of weeks. But UNC's got to fill a lot of holes. They need a lot of different types of talented players to surround who's returning, and really we don't know exactly who's returning. Seth Trimble has a decision to make. Ian Jackson has a decision to make.
Yeah.
Drake Powell. I mean, those three guys are huge, and that will determine what UNC needs. Because if you lose those three, then you definitely need a shooting guard. You definitely need a talented three. You definitely need a big man. And obviously need a point guard now too. Yeah,
you need depth too. I mean, here's the wild thing is that when you look at, and I don't want it's almost unfair to compare any team, even North Carolina at this stage, to what Duke's got. But Duke added 3 players. If you asked me if Duke needed personnel going into this season, knowing what their roster was going to look like, I would say, man, why are they bringing in 3 players? Where are they going to play? Somebody's going to lose time. They have managed to find out, thanks to injury, I guess, they have managed to find playing time. All 3 of the guys they brought out of the portal, even Mason Gillis, who has not played a ton, they've all played impactful roles in some games, some more than others. Sion James is a starter. Malik Brown, when healthy, is probably one of the best 6th or 7th men in the entire country. So they have managed to find those guys, but you need so much depth in the game. I mean, Carolina's got to bring in, whether it's through freshman or transfer portal, 7 new players, 8 new players?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, Duke had the advantage of knowing they were bringing in 3 starters as freshmen.
Right.
So they knew they needed to surround Cooper Flagg, Colin Knippel, and Kaman Malik surround those guys. UNC doesn't have that. They're going to probably start Caleb Wilson, the 5-star out of Atlanta, and even he's not going to be a super productive guy offensively. So it's just different. UNC needs to find starters, whereas Duke brings in starters as freshmen. Next year they're bringing the Boozer twins.
Yeah.
Shelton Henderson, they'll probably bring in 2 or 3 starters and surround them with talent. So definitely different models. It's just a different world we're living in. It's crazy.
Why do you think that is? Because, I mean, everybody's got theories. I've heard some theories. I'm curious as to yours. Because there shouldn't be a big separation between Duke and North Carolina when it comes to recruiting. For 2 decades, there really wasn't. I mean, every once in a while, we'd have one school kind of edge their way out in front of the other. But there shouldn't be a big difference between the talent the 2 schools recruit. Why do you think it is right now?
Well, I think it goes back to Coach K's quick buy-in to the one-and-done rule.
Right.
And just going after the best freshmen, whereas Roy Williams, he would definitely target top players, but he was fine getting developmental pieces like a Marcus Page or a Joel Berry, Theo Pinson, a top 50 player. And so that that trend saw UNC landing top 10 players and then going pro after 1 year. And so you have this track record of top draft picks that you see that happening. You can get more top draft picks coming in. So that just happened. That's the way it's been. UNC hasn't had an NBA All-Star since Vince Carter. Duke's probably had 25 or 30 since
right.
Vince Carter.
Yeah.
And people see that and want that to happen. But, I mean, the success, though, has been similar.
I agree.
UNC had 3 national titles in a row, another Final Four appearance in 22, and it's very a lot of cycles going in there. So it'll cycle back eventually. I mean, this is a huge offseason for Hubert. He's got to figure it out. He's got to hit on, like you said, they got to bring in 6 or 7 transfers, hit on 3 or 4 of them, get some starters. It's a huge year for Hubert. A lot of pressure this year. All
right, final thing for Ross Martin, Big Hitters Only podcast, 24/7 Sports. Do you think there's legit pressure? I'm actually going to have 2 quick things. Do you think there's legit pressure on Hubert to the point where this is a make or break for another year?
Yeah, I think I'm talking with a lot of friends about this. Like, what does he have to do this year coming up, 2025-26? I mean, I think he has to be a top 5 seed, top 4 seed in the tournament to get another year. Like, I think it has to be a really, really big year. I mean, I don't think UNC fans and the donors are going to accept, like, you know, a number 11 seed is not cutting it.
Right.
And they've been on the bubble now 2 years, haven't made it 1 year.
Yeah.
And even the Final Four year provided him with a lot of cushion, but they were really not that good until they were good.
Yeah.
And got an 8 seed and made a run.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's got to be like, all right, 1, 2, or 3 in the ACC and a top 5 seed in the tournament. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very interesting this time of year next year.
All right, what chance do you give Caleb Love and Arizona against Duke tonight?
I think Duke is way too good. I haven't watched much Arizona, watched a lot of Duke. I mean, I think Duke is going to roll. But it'd be an incredible story if, you know, Caleb gets an opportunity or a shot late to win or something. It'd be unbelievable. You hear Tyler Hansbrough say they're going to put if Caleb Love gets it done, they're going to raise Caleb Love's Arizona jersey in the Cincinnati Raptors.
That's better than the question I was about to ask. Will you get an Arizona Caleb Love jersey if the Wildcats pull off the upset tonight? I'm with you. I think Love's going to have a good game, and I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, and he won't be scared either. I mean,
no.
Caleb Love has never been scared of the state.
Oh, over-under shot attempts for Caleb Love, 17.5.
Yeah, probably over. Probably at least 10 threes, right?
They're going to need him. Ross Martin, Big Hitters Only podcast, 24/7 Sports, at Ross Martin NC on Twitter. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Adam. See you.
You got it. Ross Martin here on The Adam Gold Show.